Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm Megan George. I'm the Deputy City Manager in Tualatin. I was hiking in Eugene area on Saturday, and there's lots of trilliums up right now. So I'm gonna go with trillium.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Downen, she, her. I'm the VP of Quality and Impact with New Narrative. I am actually going to go with peonies. They are my favorite.
Good morning, I'm Marcia Hilly. I'm the Executive Director.
My preferred flower.
Sequoia. She, her pronouns. We have a tulip tree on our block that is just amazing. So I don't think that's a flower or flower tree, but still has flowers. So that's my favorite.
Hi, my name is Tori Fletcher, use she, her pronouns, and I'm a big fan of dahlias.
I'm Carly Brandini, Quality Improvement Program Coordinator with Washington County, she, her pronouns, and I like hyacinth because I think they smell wonderful.
I can go. I'm Catherine, Program Manager at the Department of Housing Services, and I'm with UCA. The daffodils are my favorite, just because they're so happy and they are like the first sign of spring. But also, I had to memorize a Wordsworth poem my sophomore year of English for chewing gum in class, and so every time I see them, it reminds me of that poem, and it makes me happy. Best punishment ever.
Good morning, everyone. Justin Fontenot, he, him, his. I'm the Homeless Access Program Supervisor for the county. And flower-wise, I'll go with a chrysanthemum.
Hi, all. I'm Mandy Goff. I'm the Community Services Coordinator with the City of Hillsborough, she, her pronouns. Although my last day will be April 18th. And I'm going to, I think, fourth the daffodils because yellow is my favorite color.
Well, Washington County.
I think Meredith and Nadia are up. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm testing out the headset. Okay, so I am very ignorant of flowers and flora in general. So I had to look up what I think I like, which I think is magnolia. They were just really pretty and pink, and I saw them the other day, and yeah, so they were.
I'm Meredith Cook, and I am an administrative specialist, and my favorite flower is the grape hyacinth because they're very resilient and I find them everywhere, and they're early, and apparently you can make a really cool chemical experiment because they're edible lemonade that changes color. So.
Thank you. So 12, I counted 11, but maybe I'm not. Are we just okay to move forward?
Yeah, we're okay to move forward.
Awesome. All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we're going to talk about the rating and ranking policy for the continuum of care program. And I know some of you may be familiar with it, and for some probably it's something new. And we got the policy last week, so we have time to review and read and know what it is. So Catherine, all yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen. Hopefully that's working. Yeah, can you see it? Is it working?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to walk us through a little bit of a PowerPoint, just explaining what is the rating and ranking and how do we use it. And then we'll actually talk through the rating and ranking tool that was sent out and the updated changes to the policy. And we'll go from there. So for starters, the COC rating and ranking is it's a requirement from HUD. We have to rate and rank our COC funded projects, both renewal and news, and include that rating and ranking in our application. We have to have a set policy that is clear and defined ahead of time and shared in any public solicitation for applications that would be funded under COC. We updated this a little bit last year. This was has been historically one of the primary activities of the COC board. And so under the shifting of the new governance, the responsibility for reviewing the rating and ranking policy and the kind of data components of that is coming to this subcommittee to review and then recommend to the Solutions Council that we go forward with this rating and ranking process. And then the actual final selection of the projects will go to a different subcommittee. So the equitable procurement subcommittee would be the ones that actually review the outcome of the rating and ranking and the ranked projects. And that's primarily because this group is made up of a lot of service providers who have very important information to give in relation to what makes sense to measure and score projects on. But then there's a conflict of interest when it comes to the actual funding. And so under our new governance structure, we've kind of separated those two activities. And I think, yeah, this is the kind of the chart that explains that. So the equitable procurement subcommittee will take the work, the approved policy of this group, and actually approve the ranked projects. Any questions about that? That's kind of a big change for those of you who've been a part of the COC board and the rating and ranking process in the past. I can't see faces, so if you have a question, you'll have to just unmute, or Zoe will call on folks.
Looks good.
Cool. Okay, so what is this and what do we use it for? So the COC consolidated application consists of really two kind of parts. There's the Exhibit 1, which is where all of the information about the overall system management and community engagement and coordinated entry and all of the like COC level like capital COC, the system level management takes place. And then also included in that is the individual project applications. And so the way that the funding works is we have our annual pro rata renewal demand, and oftentimes that falls into tiers. So there's a tier 1 and a tier 2. And then depending on how we score in the Exhibit 1, we either would be able to fund the entirety of tier 1 and tier 2 or just tier 1, which is why the rating and ranking becomes important, right? So projects are included on a ranked list, and then if the projects fall below the line of tier 1 and fall into tier 2, they may or may not be funded based on how our score on Exhibit 1 compares to the rest of the country. Any questions about that? Okay. So we have two types of projects in the COC application. There's renewals, and so that is all of the current existing projects that choose to continue to operate for another year would be completing a renewal application. We have an HMIS project, which is really small. I think it's like $30,000. It's not scored, so it just automatically goes in position 1. And then all other projects are ranked in order below that. And then first year renewals don't have any performance data to score, so they are automatically placed at the bottom, but they're not eligible for reallocation. We don't have any new projects this year, so this doesn't apply to this year's rating and ranking, but just a thing to know and be aware of. And then for new projects, any gap between our award and our annual renewal demand would be available for use for a new application. So for example, last year we had one project that chose to not go forward and was included in a reallocation. And then we had another $100,000 plus or minus that was included in a bonus project. So we were able to have an application for a new project. Generally, new projects go after renewals. Our continuum has generally agreed that it's better to maintain existing projects that have people enrolled in them if they're not subject to reallocation, rather than funding a new project over a renewal. Okay. And so the rating tool went out before we go into this. This is basically how the scores come out. So based on the document that you all got had all the different categories and the different questions. There are some for new and some for renewal. And essentially the points are laid out in this spreadsheet, and the data is ranked, and the projects receive a score and are ranked that way. So this is just kind of the outcome of it all. This is what it looks like in the end. But I'll just stop for 1 second, and if it would be helpful, we can go through the actual rating and ranking tool. It went out to everyone. I know folks have had the opportunity to take a look at it, but I just wanted to give us the space to look through it together and see if any other questions came up. Does that sound good to folks? Okay. Okay, Adobe has been doing a weird thing where when I open documents, they open blank. So give me just 1 moment. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty over here. If anyone else has the rating and ranking handy, anyone on the team handy to pull up, if it's showing up for you. Nope.
Do you want the PowerPoint?
No, I have the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint's working, but my PDF is opening blank again.
Oh, okay.
So if you've got the actual rating and ranking policy handy, that would be great. Oh man, Jeremy for the win. Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy. So starting at the top, actually, if you don't mind going up to the very beginning, Jeremy. We had to update this policy to reflect the new governance structure. And so the responsibilities and all of these changes up here in the narrative section are just essentially changing the names of the committees that look at the things. So were there any questions on this part? Okay, cool. So then you can go back to the actual ranking tool if you'd like. Okay, so what we look at in the ranking tool is some things are very, very objective, and some things have a little bit of subjectivity to them based on what happens in the performance evaluation. Carly Brandini, who's here with us this morning, is our responsible for monitoring, and so hopefully if there's any questions about the monitoring process, Carly, you can feel free to jump in. So first thing is, does the project participate in HMIS? It's not really an option, so this is kind of a gimme. Everybody should get 3 points here. There's no ability to not. And then for Housing First principles, this is something that we've always included in the monitoring, in the rating and ranking, and in the application process. It's also included in the monitoring. So there's kind of a set of questions included in the monitoring that help assess the level of adherence to Housing First principles within a project. And so this score would be based on the results of that monitoring. And then for C, it's serving underserved and marginalized populations. There's an equity analysis that's included in the application process. This is so this would be kind of another one that comes out of that monitoring process. And then aligning with the consolidated plan and reflecting the specific priorities of the COC. That is something that we will also talk about today. So every year, based on our system performance measures and what we're seeing in our system, there are 2 sets of priorities. There's our local priorities that we set based on what we see as the needs in our community, and taking into consideration all of the other resources and what they can pay for versus what HUD is best to pay for, and setting those as our priorities. And then HUD also overlays a set of federal level priorities for projects in the NOFO every year. So we'll talk a little bit about, that's our next vote, is what should our local priorities be. And then the project provides housing services to populations of color at a rate that reflects a commitment to racial equity. And this is essentially an objective measure, just looking at what is the enrollment. And this is something that we're looking to improve over time. But for this year, we'll be looking just at enrollments. And then in future years, hopefully improving our ability to look at enrollments, but also retention and outcomes by race and ethnicity to better measure our outcomes for racial equity. But for this year, just a straight measure. Do they, are 0 to 14% of their participants of a race or ethnicity other than white, non-Hispanic, or 14 to 24 or 25 plus? And then applicant and subrecipient have reviewed program participant outcomes with the equity lens. So we provide an equity analysis to projects every year. They create kind of an equity plan based on that analysis. And then during the monitoring process, we're looking at what progress have they made? And that's for both F and G. Then again, in the financial review, these are mostly just objective. Do they have a SAM registration? Everybody has to, so this is pretty much a gimme. And then are they fully utilizing their allocations? So HUD has a standard of 10% of having a 10% returned to HUD is a kind of a red flag, and we have to explain why a project didn't spend their full allocation. So we want to be making sure that we're staying as close to 100% spent as possible for these funds all the time. And definitely paying attention to projects that are repeatedly significantly underspent. And then financial review, we're looking to make sure there's no findings. Yeah, the 25, so all HUD COC projects require a 25% match. So just wanting to make sure that all the projects are able to provide that level. And then that their costs are reasonable and in line with other projects. So we don't have projects that are expensive beyond reason. if that makes sense. And then we're looking at impact on our performance outcomes. So each of these COC funded projects, along with all of the other projects, are fed into those system performance measures. So we want to be making sure that specifically for COC funds, we're investing in projects that improve our performance measures. So looking at reducing that length of time homeless, reducing those returns to homelessness, increasing earned income. This is a measure for our system performance measures that's actually only applied to COC funded projects. And then we also want to be increasing non-employment income. So just generally looking for that movement towards increased income and self-sufficiency. Jeremy, do you mind going to the next page? Thank you. And then looking at exits to permanent housing. So again, that's just wanting to make sure that we're funding projects that are performing well and are positively contributing to our system performance measures. We've also prioritized projects for COC that fund specifically folks with zero income, folks with disabilities, people entering from unsheltered homelessness, and chronic homeless projects serving chronically homeless people. These are small points. We do recognize that, you know, we need lots of different kinds of projects, but we do want to also make sure that we've got adequate supply of resources to serve that chronically homeless, zero income, disabled population. And then we also want to be making sure that we're funding projects that have high utilization rates, that they're doing their data entry in a timely manner, that they're not deobligating those HUD funds, and that they're scoring well on the monitoring. So there's not findings, and if there are findings, that they're being responded to in a timely manner. So those are the measures that feed into the ranking for renewals. And then because some of these things would not apply to a new project, we have a different set for new projects. If you wouldn't mind going to the next page, Jeremy, thank you. So these are the ranking tools for new projects. So again, they have to participate in HMIS, so scoring for that. Implementing projects that conform with Housing First principles, that the project is focused on serving an underserved or marginalized population, or at least has the ability to do so effectively, to have equitable access to the resource for our underserved communities. Any experience with similar services, aligning with the eligible program types in the HUD's NOFO. So we can't just fund any project that sounds like a good idea. It has to actually align with HUD's criteria and definitions for different program types. That we need to have COC providers that are engaged in the COC, that understand what's going on, that understand our system, that are participating in coordinated entry and all of those components that are what make a system as opposed to a collection of independent projects. And then their plans, they're able to implement quickly. So the HUD funds move quickly. We need to be able to implement any projects that are funded within 180 days of award notification so that we can get the projects moving. And then again, the same kind of financial review. They have the capacity essentially to manage a federal program. These are the things that we're looking at for that. And then for performance outcomes, that they're focusing on an underserved population, that there is an emphasis on housing and getting folks into housing, that there's an emphasis on a project that reduces the length of time that folks spend homeless. Jeremy, if you could go to the next page. Thank you. And then housing placements and reducing returns to homelessness. Again, just kind of measuring, making sure that the project is aware of what the system performance measures are and has a plan for making sure that it is able to achieve those. That's it. That's the policy. So thank you for sharing, Jeremy. Really appreciate that. That was a huge, huge save. Let me go back to PowerPoint. So we also, oh, it's not sharing yet. There we go. We also have the ability to reallocate funds. So if a project isn't meeting any of those criteria, or they're underperforming or scoring significantly low, especially if they're scoring significantly lower than all of the other projects year over year, then we have the ability to reallocate. And that would be based on the scoring, and that would be shifting funds from a low performing and less needed project to one that to create room for a new project. And so we did have an example of that just in the last NOFO process. The decision to reallocate would be made by the Equitable Procurement Subcommittee, but based on the rating and ranking that you all just reviewed today. And then again, when we reallocate, or we would just want to make sure that the individuals that are being served by an existing project continue to be supported. So here we're at the point of voting. So I'll just kind of pause for a second and see if there are any questions, comments, concerns, if anybody had any thoughts about any of the measures.
I had a couple questions. How does the bonus funds work? Is it like a new project, or how do those, so they go in under renewals?
The new project would go in under the new. So if there are bonus funds available, a new project would respond to the RFP that we put out, and then their application would be scored based on the kind of the second set of criteria in the policy.
Okay.
And if there are additional, I mean, the other thing that can happen is if there are additional funds, but they're not quite enough to create a whole new project, we can expand an existing project. And then that would just be scored based on the renewal numbers.
Okay. And then for the renewals, I think it was E. So the kind of the measure looking at racial equity and enrollment and the folks that you're enrolling, I thought projects received referrals directly from Community Connect and didn't have like choice over who was entering their project. So how are they scored when they're being matched with people from the Community Connect system?
Great question. So it would be based on alignment with what those referrals look like, right? So what the overall system looks like. If we are seeing a project that's receiving referrals from the system and has a specific kind of racial breakdown, but they are, for example, only successfully enrolling white people, we would say, okay, that's a red flag. So we would expect to see some proportionate enrollment in the programs.
Okay. And then my last question was, I don't know the size of the projects in the system, but I was thinking of like scaling, like if you have rental assistance for 4 households and one leaves like in a bad situation, then you have a 25% bad exit rate. So is there consideration for that, or like narrative, or maybe we don't have small projects? I don't know.
We do have a couple of small projects, and that is absolutely a consideration. And so that's part of what the Equitable Procurement Subcommittee would have to do. In the past, the COC board has like, so the way that the kind of order of operations works, we approve the rating and ranking policy. We rate and rank all of the projects. We send them each their scores. They're allowed to respond back with any kind of questions or comments, or, hey, we don't think this is right. This might be a data error, kind of an opportunity to adjust. And then in the Equitable Procurement Subcommittee, that information is provided, and we don't have to do the ranking just strictly on the scores. There is the ability to adjust based on things like that. Or, for example, a project that specifically serves chronically homeless individuals only, but scores really, really low on increased employment income, because that's not really a goal of that project. We would be able to adjust the ranking if that were a significant impact on where they land.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Great questions.
I've got one question on racial equity E. How are those thresholds? So the 0 to 14, 15 to 24, and then 25% up. How are those thresholds set?
Those were based on the overall system data that was collected, I think, 2 years ago.
Okay, so our data shows that basically over 25% or slightly around that number are people of color who are in the system. And so that's why that was set as the target.
Right, that also meet the HUD eligibility criteria.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts? You know, Lindsay and Marcia, you guys have been a part of these conversations for a really long time. So anything you want to share with the group?
I mean, historically, it's been relatively collaborative, and I feel like we definitely have enough time to kind of prepare. And speaking as a provider who has some of those programs that are very small scale, and you can have, a vacancy or an unsuccessful outcome that definitely impacts, I think we just really lean heavily into the narrative for HUD around that.
Yes, I just had a question, and I suppose I should know the answer to this. Are all the criteria that we score on outlined by HUD, or does the county have responsibility for defining some of those criteria?
HUD makes recommendations, and they very clearly lead you to the conclusion they want you to come to based on what is in their Exhibit 1 questions. But we do have some autonomy
Some latitude.
in how we manage it. Yeah. Oftentimes they'll ask questions like, do you rate projects based on racial equity? They don't tell you how, but they ask if you do, and you need to explain how you do, and then they decide if that's good enough or not.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay. So it's the moment of truth. Do you guys recommend approval of the updated rating and ranking process for the 24 COC NOFO application?
Thumbs up.
Great. Okay. Do we need to put it in the chat, or do we have a survey, guys? Or are we good? Do we need to take a screenshot of the
Did you
thumbs up?
counted all the thumbs up?
If you wouldn't mind just putting it in the chat so we have documentation, yeah, because
Yes,
HUD will want to see some
yes.
some paper. Awesome, thank you guys. Zoe, should I just go right into the next thing?
Yeah, sure.
Let
NOFO
me-
cycle. Thank you.
Yeah. So the other component of preparing for the NOFO, and just for context, HUD is saying the NOFO shall drop in May. They also said that last year and it dropped in August, so grain of salt. But we do need to be prepared and ready to go with what our local funding priorities are. And so, as we mentioned, usually that's just based on our system needs. Where do we need some improvement on our system performance measures, and kind of what else is existing in the system, and where might we use any additional HUD funds to best plug holes. And so last year, our local priority points were focusing on projects that support shelter participants to transition from homelessness to permanent housing as quickly as possible. So with the goal of reducing that length of time. Here, I'm just going to share my screen so you all can see it and read along with me. So it's this section here of the NOFO, where we say additional points are rewarded. So these are the bonus points for new projects. Does not impact renewals, just new projects. And it's projects that support shelter participants to transition. So really last year we saw the same length of time homeless, longer than what we like, above the HUD standard. And so wanting to focus in on really helping kind of get that flow through for folks that are in our shelters. And then focusing on folks that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness, getting those folks into permanent housing, and then continuing to address the disparity we see for Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders in our housing programs. So these were our priorities from last year. And as we looked at the performance measures in our last meeting here, we saw the same kind of needs. And so our kind of recommendation as staff is that we keep these priorities as they are. And so kind of coming to you guys today with are there any other areas where you think we need to prioritize anything that came out of the discussion last time, or other discussions you've been a part of that makes you think we might need to shift focus or add additional focus for our funding priorities?
Yes, it sounds like we should stick with those. That's what the data shows. I don't have any other suggestions.
Okay.
Same.
Okay. So here's the next moment of truth. Does this committee vote to recommend that we retain the same 3 local funding priorities from last year, which are supporting shelter participants to transition to permanent housing, projects that focus on unsheltered individuals transitioning to permanent housing, and addressing disparities? Approve recommendation. Thank you, Marcia. Awesome. Thank you all. Yay. Okay. Sounds like we're good. So thank you. That is it. We just did a whole bunch of COC business that allows us to move forward with the application. So thank you so much. We are well positioned to get all of our things done on time, which is great and important. So thank you. Back to you, Zoe.
Thank you. That was awesome, and good luck with the application. And I'm sure we're gonna get it. Next on the agenda is emergency order and MAC updates. So thankfully, we all here work with the MAC. We're all part of the MAC group here, so we all know what that means. And yeah, happy to hear the updates. And that's Catherine, right? No, Jeremy.
It's Justin. That's why Justin is here with us
Oh,
today.
Justin.
Yeah.
And I was. Go ahead, Justin.
Yes. So I wanted to talk to you all about just some general updates on how we're doing with the locally coordinated command centers, the LC3. Things are going pretty smoothly with it. Just last week, we had a couple of 2 or 3 different instances of getting people housed from being unsheltered. So that's pretty awesome leap there. And so the way that we currently have things structured, we've identified areas of improvement to make things a little bit more smoother. So the way that we currently have things set up right now is that we have 4 different meetings per week that are about 45 minutes each, where each region is going over the folks that they have flagged for a case conferencing conversation. However, 4 meetings a week is a lot to carry. So we're wanting to condense that down to 1 large conversation per week, where it's about, we'll probably have it 90 minutes where we're allowing each region to speak about the folks that they have flagged. We'll also rotate that region, like say Tigard starts this week, and then maybe next week Hillsborough starts. So give people a different slot in the meeting to ensure that everybody has a chance to go over their list, because another problem that we are experiencing is that the lists are pretty long sometimes, and so we can't always get through everyone who has been flagged for conversation, except for, you know, Forest Grove being the smaller area with less folks. It's easy to get through that list, but the other ones are a little difficult to do. Also, having folks come together in a larger style will allow them to have conversations, as one of the problems that we're seeing here is that, say, one group will be flagged in the Beaverton area, but then that's not their meeting that they attend, so they're not present for the conversations. So having everybody in the room as such will make for better coordination there. But also we're wanting to include some case management conversations and rapid rehousing conversations as well. Currently, our folks who are on the team that manage those programs, they're not in that conversation, they're not in those meetings, and it would absolutely be beneficial to have them join up. And so as we are looking to make these changes, unfortunately, we are a little bit delayed. These changes will require our data team to build a different report that we can use to make those meetings run smoothly. And our data team is pretty booked up right now. So we are on the wait list for them to build that report. And we're hoping to have that sometime this summer, but we're going to see what we can implement before that report gets generated. Because again, 4 meetings for about an hour each, that's a heavy load to carry. And so with this list, what we are looking to do is to move to a more active and inactive style of tracking the folks on the LC3 list. And what that means is that for the active side, we'll have participants who are unsheltered, outside, and actively engaged in the problem-solving process with street outreach and having regular contact with street outreach. Those are the folks that we will be prioritizing and having conversations about considering their active engagement. But we'll also have an additional list of folks who are inactive, whether that be folks who are known to be outside but not currently engaging with street outreach, or folks who are out of contact with street outreach and no one knows where they are. And so while that list won't be actively talked about, we will allow folks to, like, if you need to flag this person for a conversation to update us on what's going on, absolutely the street outreach teams will be able to flag those folks on the inactive list to join the conversation. But again, the priority would be moving through the active list of folks who are identified, unsheltered, and actively engaging with street outreach. And so I think I'll stop there for the sake of time. And are there any particular questions?
Hi, this is Marcia. I'm just curious, and I should probably know this as well, but the outreach teams, I assume, work just Monday through Friday, correct?
They do have some rotating schedules, but for the most part, yes, that is the case. We're kind of hoping to update that a little bit in the next fiscal year, giving a little bit more flexibility, because we do want to have some weekend engagement, but the focus will pretty much be the regular business hours. One of the concerns there is that we want to have teams of at least 2 going out, and that's a little challenging to do later in the evening or on the weekend sometimes, and keep folks safe as such. So that's a direction that we're going to be looking at in that sense.
Yeah, the reason I ask, I was in
is to cover it all.
the reason I ask is I was in Beaverton yesterday, and saw several people out on the streets that, you know, just anecdotally seemed more prevalent than when I'm here during the week. So, but yeah, weekends are tough.
Yeah, thanks for that call out, Marcia. I know there's a couple of areas that we're really focusing on addressing with some of the changes that Justin was describing, and they include both better connections with folks that are in vehicles. That's been a challenging area for our outreach teams to engage with folks. So getting that information from like both law enforcement and also from our coordinated entry list, where folks are calling in and saying, I'm in my car, but we have no idea where they are. And then they come up on the like on the list for housing, and no one has engaged with them and no one has found them. So wanting to kind of shorten that, but also we're still seeing a large number of households that are coming up on the prioritization list and being referred to housing programs, but that lag, the connections between housing staff, housing navigators, and street outreach is still not as strong as we would like it, to help make sure that those connections happen quickly and folks are getting engaged and moved in as quick as possible. So I think those are kind of the two big areas of need we're trying to focus on with the adjustments.
Catherine, can I chime in too? Because Marcia,
Please.
your question about the weekend piece is really interesting. So your anecdotal look is actually one that I'm curious to follow up with too, if that's what you were seeing. You know, our BPD bike patrol just went from 5 to 7 days, and so we've got specialized police bike patrol on the ground 7 days a week now. And if we don't necessarily have outreach to connect to, it is just an interesting system question on weekends. I know we do have, you know, the city is paying to have a Greater Good Northwest outreach work in the library on Saturdays, but that's only a piece as well. And I know we should probably want to have a conversation about libraries at some point as well, but it is, so Marcia, I guess I just want to chime in and say, yeah, I think, and Catherine, the system connection questions, especially on weekends, are really important.
Yeah, thank you. I think the other, that's a great call out. And yeah, I think there's definitely a recognition that services are sparser on weekends and harder to get. And that's also one of the primary goals of having the access centers and expanding that resource to 7 days a week, which is kind of a longer term plan, as you know. It's going to take a minute, but I do think Hillsborough is at 7 days a week now. Yeah. And we have that giant gap in Beaverton about access centers, as well as just general outreach overall. So yeah, definitely something to keep chipping away at. So, yeah.
And Rolanda mentioned in the chat that if there's any need of outreach where ODHS can participate to assist in accessing ODHS services, just to let her know. They have a van.
They have the van, I know. And that's actually a great thank you for reminding us of that, because that's another kind of gap that we're seeing is folks not enrolled in OHP. And so getting them connected to healthcare, behavioral health care, getting referrals to the LATS, like a specific shelter for folks, SNAP, yeah, for folks that are transitioning out of hospital. That fundamental piece of wanting to make sure we've got more OHP assisters and folks that can help with enrollment, and that's embedded in our shelter and outreach programs, just to remove that barrier to the next step for folks is critical.
Great. I think the next thing is next steps. I don't know if that's Meredith or Nadia about our meeting.
Our next meeting is on May 13th, I believe, right? That's the Monday. Yes, that's the scheduled time. And does that still work for everyone? I know that there might be conflict.
Second Monday of each month.
Of second Monday of each month, yeah. So next month will be the 13th.
We also need to consider adjusting the schedule. There are a couple of members that have standing conflicts. So, scheduling is always a challenge that we may need to look at shifting again to another Monday as well.
Okay. We'll wait for the email. Anything else? I don't know if we also would use this meeting to do some announcements or no. Although can have 5 minutes. Who doesn't love that? All right, then. Thank you very much for your votes on this important thing.
Thank you.
See you in May. Bye-bye.
Thank you.